Hello everyone and welcome to This Week is Stupid for the 23rd of January 2022. I hope you all had a very boring and bad day so that I may do my best to entertain you, because I can't entertain people who are already happy. And as such, we're going to start with the funny news as usual. Apparently, a woman marries the color pink after dating it for 40 years. Now, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, so here we go. We get to see this expression that the internet has called it the soy expression. And it is a very interesting expression because it can also symbolize happiness, but it can also symbolize an expression of deep pain and agony. I mean, if you just look at the eyes, which are called a window to the soul, if you look at the gentleman in the left, it does seem that his eyes can also express pain and anguish. So it really depends. This is why the soy expression is a very beautiful and artistic expression with multiple connotations. Now, I would like to ask the color pink, how did it manage to do it? How did it manage to seduce a woman without paying cash? So the color pink didn't have to use Tinder. It didn't have to pay for restaurant meals. It doesn't have to actually bring money home to the table. And most importantly, if the woman divorces the color pink, will she manage to get half of what pink owns? All of these are very important questions that I do not know how to answer. But apparently, according to the article, it is said that the woman wore a voluminous pink dress. Yes, the word for today is voluminous. I had to look it up. It means filled with volume. And she got married. Now, what if I get married to the color pink? Does it work? I mean, we are very forward thinking, so it doesn't really matter the gender of the color pink. Love is love after all. So if I were to marry the color pink, would I be in a violation? Would I be committing bigamy? Bigamy is the problem in Romania when you marry two women. It's illegal. You can't do it. You go to jail. So if I marry the color pink, do I go to prison? Will she be upset on the color pink for infidelity? We don't know. But what I do know is that if you're a man and you marry a waifu, if you marry a dokimakura, if you are pathetic, you are an incel, and the press is going to write about you, shaming you and laughing at you. But if you're a woman who marries the color pink, you are enlightened, you are progressive. The press is going to write articles about you, congratulating you on your forward thinking and being part of the upper echelons of society. I mean, this is maximum progressiveness achieved. The whole purpose of all the academics slaving at universities in order to push progressive culture. This is the end result of thousands of intellectuals and smart people. We have finally got there. So I would like to shake hands with all the leftist academics and all the leftist professors for finally normalizing this and bringing up new ways of viewing and experiencing love. Now, in other news, in Britain, teachers call police on enterprising primary school boy, age 9, selling air refresheners to boost his pocket money. So you have to understand what was going on in the mind of the teacher. He saw that the parent was indoctrinating the child into a cisgender, heteronormative, patriarchal, pro-capitalist society. So how could the teacher not act? How could the pillar of wisdom in our brave, progressive, multilateral, anti-racist society not pick up the phone and call the cops? Now, I know a lot of people in the comment section was like, homie was just trying to have a side bustle. No! That is the wrong thinking. That is the thinking of bigotry and reactionaryism. A normal citizen goes to the government for handouts to empower the teacher. The teacher works for the government and the teacher needs more power, more wealth, more stuff for himself. Because only then can the teacher educate your children.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the households, then we start making better.
So as such, the teacher did the right and normal thing. This is the correct way of behaving. When you see something happening, you pick up the phone and you call the authorities. How dare this parent lecture his children into the horrors of capitalism? Don't you know that capitalism hurts people? Of course it does. So this is why everyone should thank teachers for their great contribution into making society great and lecturing us into the correct moral framework. So, unfortunately, the story does not have a happy end because as the police came up and knocked at the door of this evil, bigoted right-winger, the mother explained what was going on and the police seemed to be very understanding. Apparently, the mother was just allowing the homie to have a little bit of a side business in order to increase pocket money and understand the value of labor. This is not the correct way. You educate people. You give them allowance. You give them to understand the value of doing nothing and receiving handouts from the authority. But unfortunately, the cops didn't do anything, and this is why all cops are bastards. This is why we need to defund the police, because the police is still bigoted. They are still stuck in the old ways, and we cannot move forward. Lean forward, as MSNBC like to say. Do that great leap forward. We cannot do it as long as we're being dragged back by these capitalist institutions. But luckily, there is still hope, because not all institutions around the world are bigoted. Some institutions want to lean forward. Some institutions want to do the great leap forward with us. For example, the Science Museum has boarded up displays on early human migration because it is not inclusive. See, the Science Museum realizes that science, like everything else, is subjective. It can be interpreted differently. And as such, when the interpretation doesn't fit with what is needed politically, the interpretation needs to bend a little bit to be more integrated in a civilized, multilateral, anti-racist society. For example, in the case of human migration, the idea that all humans come from Africa is now bigoted. Why is it bigoted? Because it's not inclusive. Why is it not inclusive? They did not say. The only thing that they said is that the display explaining mankind's migration from Africa was earmarked for alteration in order to update the non-inclusive narrative. Everything needs to be inclusive. Just stuff it in. Just stuff it. You know, like a bus, which is traveling from bus station to bus station, and you stuff those people in. You stuff them in because it makes the bus better. The more people in the bus, like the more you shove it in, the more you push it in, and you make it inclusive. Like everyone in the world needs to get in that bus. Like just push them in the bus. That is what a progressive bus looks like. That is what the Great Leap Forward looks like. And this is why some institutions understand that this is the correct path. So the title of the display, How Did You Get Here? Stressed humanity's common lineage. Ugh, why should we be all in this together? No, there are different tribes striving from power, the oppressed and the marginalized. This is how a normal ideology is formed. And the oppressed need to fight against the oppressors, and they need to seize the wealth, and they need to redistribute the wealth, and it's only through the struggle can we achieve progressivism, lean forward. That's how you do it. Maps in the display also showed how mankind ultimately spread to the Americas and Polynesia, and displayed figurines, model boats, a bow, and a drum to illustrate the far-flung areas of the Homo sapiens colonization. Again, like that horrible word, colonization, we can't use that anymore. Again, history needs to bend to fit the current moral sensitivities. Only like that can we know the truth. The cabinet on prehistoric pioneers who open up new worlds has been covered with white hoardings that state staff are updating the contents of this case and asking visitors to bear with us and enjoy the rest of the gallery. A nearby titled Out of Africa, the name of the theory of human migration from the continent is now bare, but a display on the first European remains in place. I just want to see the upper echelons of science. I want to know the truth. So that is why I am really excited to see how this museum uncovers the mystery of science, like the purpose of humanity. Do you see how powerful progressive ideology is? Like without this progressive ideology, we would never know. We would have lived a lie, just like our grandparents lived a lie, just how our fathers lived a lie, like everyone lived a lie. But now this museum is using the correct tools from the toolbox in order to figure out what actually happened. And hopefully we're going to get an answer probably by next year when they're going to unveil the forward-leaning new exhibits. And that's a good thing. Moving on, we got news from Italia. Italia. I think some of you, especially people who live in Italia, know what I'm going to talk about. You guys know that we live in a very difficult time where we need to keep people safe. And the best way to keep people safe is to have Zoom calls. Meeting face-to-face is reactionary. Having Zoom calls is progressive. And the Italian parliament had such a Zoom call. Now, usually Zoom calls work as intended, but every now and then you have a couple of accidents, a couple of wardrobe malfunctions, if you know what I mean. And this particular one involved in a gentleman showing Tifa from Final Fantasy on a Zoom call. And Tifa is the lady on the screen, but I can't actually show you what Tifa was doing in that particular situation. It was the interpretation of an artist by the name of Juicy Neko. And Juicy Neko had Tifa, and I want you guys to close your eyes and imagine this. Imagine this, because I can't show you. YouTube wouldn't like it. But I think it's okay if I can just describe it in a tasteful manner. So Tifa was staying on a bed, and there was someone behind her, and she seemed to have trouble breathing. Like her breath was accelerated, like her lungs required more air. And she was making squeaky noises. Kind of like a clown. Well, not like a clown, like wahoo wahoo, but it was like, you know. And I want you to imagine the face of the lawmakers from Italy while that was going on. I think I can show this on YouTube. That is fine. The facial expressions, right? As they were watching the art of Juicy Neko. And you can Google it, right? I mean, you can Google it because that is allowed. I mean, all you have to do is to Google Tifa and Italy, and it's prime news. It's national headlines, if you will. I do have to appreciate the taste of the person that accidentally showed the art of Juicy Neko. It's a man of culture. Tifa is indeed a very renowned character within the gaming world. He does know his Final Fantasy. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to say. But again, you can Google it. And I'm not just the only one telling you to Google it. Apparently, this is the official position of the US Vice President. Google it, because Google is the truth.
2 years into this, why didn't the administration just go out and secure more at-home tests? After the Delta surge in the fall, why are we at a point now where folks still can't get tests?
But we just ordered, I don't have the number in front of me, but millions of tests. We have 20,000 sites where people can go, and I urge people to, you can Google it or go onto any search engine and find out where free testing and the free testing site is available.
But Madam Vice President, the fact that we're still telling people to Google where you can get a test and...
Well, but come on now. I mean, really, if you want to figure out how to get across town to some restaurant you heard is great, you usually do Google to figure out where it is. So that's simply about giving people, right, a mechanism by which they can locate something that they need, something that can help them.
This will help you. Remember, not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination at the Walgreens or at the particular.
But you see, this is why if you're a progressive citizen, you gotta stay connected to the media. You gotta give them those clicks. You gotta give them those ratings. You gotta read The Guardian nonstop. You gotta read CNN nonstop. If a single minute of your life goes without being glued to the mainstream media, you're almost ready to become a bigot. You're almost ready to stop being a progressive and enlightened person because the media constantly updates you with how to think. They hire a team of specialists and experts, people much smarter than you, and they tell you what the narrative is for that time period. Now, if you only watch the media now and you stop watching it for a week, in a new week there might be a new narrative that you're unaware of, and because you didn't get that update, because you didn't get that uptake in information, you might make the wrong decision. So in this particular case, I think President Harris, as Biden likes to call her, is completely right. So President Harris, if she says you need to Google it, you need to Google it. Why do I call her President Harris? Well, I just told you. Biden calls her President Harris.
President Harris and I stood in the United States Capitol. Last week, President Harris and I...
And believe it or not, this is the second time it happened. And since I don't see any fact checkers debunking or fact checking this, it must be true. I mean, I'm completely incapable of finding out the truth. I mean, if I want to buy a house or make a bank loan, then I can decide for myself whether or not it's appropriate. But when it comes to politics, all of a sudden I'm incapable of deciding fact from fiction, so I need fact checkers. So what on earth are the fact checkers doing? Well, they're fact checking YouTubers, of course, the most important job a fact checker has. Like, for example, there is YouTuber Shoeonhead, who recently got herself into a controversy for taking a picture while wearing an FBI coat. I don't know how Canadian Shoeonhead is going to explain to a judge why is she impersonating the FBI, an American institution. But, well, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's the internet, so people were outraged. However, now people were outraged again because, and I made a video about it, she posted a very interesting clickbait saying that the FBI considers her to be a domestic terrorist, and if you want to know more, you need to click a link. And that link takes you to her newsletter. So most normal people use boobies, but she actually used the FBI. Understandable. But of course, she now has an army of fact checkers up her ass. For example, you have this individual, Daniel Dale, a YouTuber with more than 480,000 Twitter followers, tricked a bunch of people into thinking that the FBI was targeting her. How? She named her newsletter, "Use caution when engaging with this user," and used the FBI seal or something like it as the newsletter image. Well, see, a lot of people were a little bit bewildered. It's like, what do you mean the FBI seal or something like it? Was it or wasn't it the FBI seal, Mr. Fact Checker? Shouldn't you know? But it's understandable because fact checkers, they all have back problems. You know, like women with big boobs have back problems. So do fact checkers because the entire American democracy rests on their shoulders. So it weighs down on their back and they're very, very problematic. They have all these back problems and they're in a lot of pain. So asking them to know how the FBI symbol looks like, it's a little bit more. I mean, you need to have mercy on them. They need to stay at home and stay safe a lot of the time. So when they do get their job done, when they do fact check, they don't really have time to look at all the small details. It's like, hey, is this the FBI thingy or not? No, they just do the essential. But unfortunately, I wish they would fact check politicians more often, because I understand like fact checking YouTubers is very important, but what about politicians? Because look what's happening in the Norwegian parliament, for example.
Is de heer Klaus Schwab, oprichter en voorzitter van het World Economic Forum. En hij heeft ook een boek geschreven met als pakkende titel COVID-19, The Great Reset. En mijn vraag aan de demissionair minister-president is, hoe beoordeelt hij de inhoud van dit boek?
De minister-president.
Ik ken het boek niet, voorzitter. Maar ik zou de heer Vermeijeren willen adviseren om niet
al te veel in al die conspiracy-theorieën. Ik kijk ze ook allemaal op YouTube. Ik vind het altijd fascinerend hoe dan uitgelegd wordt dat 9/11 niet heeft plaatsgevonden of dat het allemaal anders zit. Ontzettend knap in elkaar gezet, maar het is meestal wat het is, een conspiracy-theorie.
De heer Van Meijeren.
Nou, het verbaast mij dat de eerste vraag die ik aan de heer Rutte stel sinds ik beëdigd ben als Kamerlid direct wordt beantwoord. Dank u wel, maar het verbaast mij dat die eerste vraag direct wordt beantwoord met een leugen. Ik heb namelijk een brief in mijn hand die dateert van 26 november 2020. En dat is een brief van de heer Rutte aan de heer Klaus Schwab, waarin hij de heer Schwab bedankt voor het toezenden van zijn boek. En dit noemt een hoopvolle analyse voor een betere toekomst. Zou de heer Rutte nog even kunnen graven in zijn geheugen? Het is nog geen half jaar geleden, dus ik weet niet hoe lang uw herinneringen actief blijven. Maar waarschijnlijk is dit nog wel ergens op te graven. En mijn eerste vraag opnieuw te beantwoorden en nu eerlijk, alstublieft.
Nou, het eerlijke antwoord is dat dat een nette brief is. Waarin je helaas niet alle boeken die je toegestuurd krijgt van kaft tot kaft kunt lezen. Maar wel degene die je toestuurt een vriendelijke brief wil terugsturen.
Nou, dan zegt de heer Rutte dus eigenlijk dat hij niet heeft gelogen tegen mij, maar tegen de heer Klaus Schwab. Maar laat ik dan hier direct alsnog de vraag stellen. De heer Klaus Schwab die pleit in zijn boek voor het resetten van onze wereld, om onze nationale parlementaire democratie te vervangen door een globale technocratie. Hij pleit ervoor dat er een einde komt aan privébezit. En de heer Rutte is er kennelijk niet eens van bewust dat hij dit een hoopvolle boodschap voor een betere toekomst heeft genoemd. Hoe is het mogelijk dat de heer Rutte een waardeoordeel hecht aan een boek met een neocommunistische boodschap, terwijl hij dat boek niet eens gelezen heeft?
Dank u wel. De minister-president.
Fact-checkers! Fact-checkers, help! Help! Democracy is in danger! Fact-checkers! CNN! Oh, they don't work in Norway. What do we do? What do Norwegians do when the government is being accused? Who defends the government? There is no CNN. In other news, let's talk about safety. Safety is the most important thing of 2022. Nothing is more important than safety. And the only people that can provide you safety are the governments, of course, working hand in hand with the corporations, shaking hands. So I noticed a very interesting product on Twitter, which allows you to be like Cabal from Mortal Kombat. You know, he's got those cool hooks. Well, now you can actually have them in real life. And this is for the old normal people out there, okay? So now those crazy conspiracy theorists that actually touch things with their hands, now you get to have this thing like Cabal. And there's even an image where, like I love this image right here. Hold on, freeze that, dial that back. I love this one, right? So the person is using this device, but is also using a glove. I mean, this is maximum safety for normal people, not those crazy people that would just open this door with their hand. Like, are you insane? That's not a conspiracy person that, like, a normal person likes to put on the glove and use this. By the way, how should we call this device? I mean, I don't care what the company brands it. I want to give it a pretty name. I would call it the hooker. Is that not better? Like the hooker. Have you brought your hooker today? So yeah, I mean, look, you can use it for everything. You can feel like Captain Hook. You can feel like a disabled person. And you can, I mean, look, even here, like this is beautiful. Like this is brilliant. So he's using gloves and the hooker in order to throw out the trash. But like the problem is, you're not like Cabal. Like Cabal has two of them. Like you need two of them. You can't just buy one because look, you're touching this box with your other hand and you're contaminated. Also, like here's something weird. So one hand has the glove, but the other hand doesn't have the glove. Oh my God, this is not safe. Wow. I hope the person who filmed this is going to take the actor who made this and put him into a 2-week quarantine somewhere, because I don't feel safe just by watching this video. This is like a conspiracy theorist. This is not like a normal person. But yeah, so as you can see, it's like here comes the diversity initiative. Boom, boom. You know, like if I was the one doing this commercial, I would have hired like people with different skin colors to do this. Like that would have made it more inclusive. But you know, it is what it is. I mean, at least it's better than nothing, I guess. At least it's keeping people safe, because safety is paramount right now, is the most important moral attribute a society can have. There is nothing more important than safety. Everyone should live like in a prison where you get free healthcare, free food, maximum safety. But, liberty. Who cares about liberty? Safety, that's the most important thing. And when it comes to safety, I think the Australian government is the best at delivering it. It finally managed to get rid of the controversy regarding Novak Djokovic. And if you don't know how Novak Djokovic looks like, well, this is how I imagine the mainstream media pictures him like. It's a caricature. The Australian government just managed to avert the plague. He is the rider of the apocalypse, of pestilence. As I understand it, if he was allowed to get into that country, you would have had something far worse than COVID. You would have had a moral contagion. That's right, a moral contagion. Do you know what a moral contagion is? It's when you allow thought criminals to run amok. And the Australian government is really good at keeping people safe, especially from moral contagion. Look here. Djokovic detained in Australia yet again. The tennis star faces deportation as Australians argue with his anti-vax sentiment could spark civil unrest. Why would it spark civil unrest? Well, because, you bigot, due to his high-profile status and position as a role model, him making the decision of not vaccinating himself and him having a doctor's note from his country is highly problematic. Extremely problematic, because most people from Australia could look at it and they would think, wait a second. Why are there things different in Serbia than there are in Australia? And that cannot be allowed to happen, because that is not progressive. That is not left-leaning. That is not going towards safety. So the Australian government went, nein, verboten. So initially they invited him in the country. Then they told him to GTFO. Then he sued the Australian government and won. And then the Australian government went, you know what? We're going to deport you yet again. And we're going to keep doing this because we can. We are the government. Mwahaha. We have responsibility of keeping people safe from moral contagion. So last week, he packed his bags and off he went. Also in Australia, returning travelers made to hand over phones and passcodes to Australian Border Force. Now that is progressive. That is so left-leaning. That is the epitome of the labor of thousands of academics slaving at those universities in order to deliver this maximum progress. Finally, Australia is going to send those spaceships to Alpha Centauri. Can you imagine just how progressive that country is? My God, I mean, this is what years of work from all of those activists and all of those people pushing the culture to the left, like finally, Australia is almost there. Why almost there? Because it will never be there, because there is always more work to be done. But yes, finally the government is now empowered. They have all the power to do the things that need to be done. An equitable government for equitable and inclusive people. Look at this. A man who was forced to hand over his phone and passcode to Australian Border Force after returning to Sydney from holiday has labeled this tactic an absolute gross violation of privacy. Yes, but it is also an absolute deliverance of safety. You have now allowed the government to keep you safe. How can the government keep you safe if it doesn't know what you are doing? You are like a little child. You are like a little nobody that is clueless. So the government needs to know what you are doing every time, like a nanny. It's like the nanny state needs to know what you're doing to keep you safe. Software developer James and his partner returned from a 10-day holiday in Fiji, and they were stopped at the border at Sydney Airport. They were taken aside, and after emptying their suitcase, an official asked them to write their phone passcodes on a piece of paper before taking their phones to another room. We weren't informed on why they wanted to look at our phones. We were told nothing. You don't need to know. You're not even smart enough to make your own decisions. You can easily be misinformed. Of course, the government doesn't even need to tell you. Like, do you know how expensive it would be to like hire a fact checker next to the police officer so that they can fact check everything, and then an expert to explain it to you and a journalist to explain to you what the expert has said? Like, look, it's a lot simpler. You don't need to know. All you need to know is that the government is keeping you safe. You bigot. Who knows what they're taking out of it? None of your concern. Why are you concerned about these things anyway? It's like what the government is like. Oh, you do not trust the government? Are you like that Novak's fellow, the Dvonik, the Serbian? Are you like him? Please tell me you're not like him, because then we have a problem. Oh my God, moral contagion. Oh. James said he has no idea what officials looked at, whether a copy of any of the data was made. It's an absolute gross violation of privacy. Privacy, what's that? Privacy. What a dirty word. Ugh. Do progressive people use the word privacy? Is that the word we use now in 2022? Ugh. You know what? That disgusts me. The word itself, I had to utter it. It's still on my mouth. I'm going to end the stream. I can't keep it up anymore. I mean, this vile word on my tongue. Privacy. Anyway, right. Let me know what you guys think. And if you like this channel, well, I'm going to have a live stream right after this. There's a couple more news that I haven't covered. There's actually many news that I haven't covered, especially from Britain. And if you guys want to check it out, there's the link into the pinned comment. You can click it, and it will take you to my live stream, and we can talk about some other news that I didn't have time to discuss them here. I'm trying to keep it 30 minutes max. So hopefully I'll see you there. And also, if you really like this channel, please do contribute, right? There's an e-begging link as well, where you can give me some money, because, well, everyone needs money. And I will give you buyer's remorse in return. I promise you will not get better buyer's remorse than on this channel. So hopefully I'll see you guys in the live stream. Like, click it now. Like, click. Just scroll down to the comment section. There's a link, pinned comment. Click, and I'll see you there. Take care.